Sunday, February 9, 2025. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to the Weekend Show, where we make the time to consider the news of the week. You can support my work and independent journalism at patreon.com/5Minute News. Our guest today represents California's 17th Congressional District, located in the heart of Silicon Valley. Congressman Ro Khanna, welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you. I'm a fan. I appreciate your having me on. Thank you for what you and your listeners are doing to stand up for democracy.
Well, that's really the main issue at the moment, is that there is a fear, general fear, that democracy has been undermined in the US to such an extent that the lunatics have taken the keys to the asylum. And I know that you sit on the Oversight and Accountability Committee, and so, you know, you're kind of best placed to talk to us about this. And maybe public enemy number one at the moment seems to be Elon Musk, who nobody voted for, and yet seems to be running the US government, as well as seeking to fire tens of thousands, if not millions of staff. So maybe we could start with me just asking you, how do you feel about the status quo at the moment?
It's completely unacceptable. It's a constitutional crisis, and that's why there was a bombshell exchange between Elon and me yesterday. Folks should view it. He unfortunately called me a dick. I've known Elon for 15 years. I initially said that, Elon, I'm open to working on DOGE if there are cuts on wasteful spending. And I acted in good faith when the president put him in that role. But he is violating the Constitution by trying to stop payments unilaterally. He has to come to Congress. He has to work in partnership with Congress. And I called on him to testify in front of the Oversight Committee. I said he should be subpoenaed to do that. And, you know, he didn't like that. And so we went back and forth yesterday.
The problem, though, is that when you request a subpoena in a kind of normal government, then people would have to heed that request. But we're dealing with an abnormal government situation now, where even judges' rulings, there is a good chance that Donald Trump and Elon Musk will just simply ignore those. They don't seem to respect the institutions or those who seek to kind of maintain order in this country right now.
Well, you're right. The Republicans refused to vote to get that subpoena, but we still have leverage as Democrats. And I've said we need to have a plan. People say, what is the plan? What is the plan? We need to communicate. We do know what we're doing. We have a plan. Here are the three things every Democrat should do. First, don't give them any votes. No votes on the debt ceiling. No votes on funding government. No votes on the appointments until they make a commitment that they will spend every penny that Congress authorizes and appropriates. Second, we've got to be out there talking about the work federal civil servants are doing and that government is good. Since 1980, we've been hearing government is bad, government is bad, government is bad. That's been the mantra in the United States. So when people come and say we want to cut federal service folks who are helping us keep our clean air, keep our water safe, keep our airplanes safe, then people don't know the extraordinary work that they're doing. We have to defend them. And third, we need to be everywhere, show up everywhere on shows like yours, on podcasts, on conservative podcasts, with people who are being affected by these cuts. That is the plan of action. Democrats need to lead. There's a void of leadership. And I'm hoping that we can sort of get us in high gear to take on this fight.
You talk of this leadership vacuum on the Democrat side. Who is in charge at the moment?
Well, I think it's got to be Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem is the minority leader. He is the one who's going to be Speaker of the House. I think we're going to take the House back. He has the support of a lot of younger members. And I'd like to see him doing a press conference every day, giving us our marching orders and giving people confidence that we have power in the Congress. We're not victims. We're not spectators. The president needs us to be able to raise the debt ceiling to fund the government. We know he folded to Trudeau and President Sheinbaum when the markets dropped. He's going to fold if we stay together on the debt ceiling vote. And we need to get the concessions that he will make sure that he funds government for what Congress appropriates. And Elon's numbers are dropping. He's at 30-some% approval. So we have power, and we shouldn't play the victim hands. People want to see us fight.
I completely agree with you, and it's great to hear you say it. But the issue, I guess, and I'm just trying to speak on behalf of the people who I know are watching and are frustrated, because nobody voted for Elon Musk, we know that. But in terms of leadership, people voted for Kamala Harris in huge numbers. I mean, Trump's mandate was only 1.5% above the success that Kamala Harris had. Would it be more helpful to maybe have the former vice president step up, to have more voices? I hear you on Hakeem Jeffries. Chuck Schumer is doing his old school moves, and there was a lot of criticism of the "we will win" move that the chants that he did the other day, simply because it just seems so antiquated compared to the kind of how to describe it, this kind of X version of the government that Elon Musk is trying to bring about.
Well, I think we need to do what I did, which is to take on a fight with Elon Musk on X, which is to take on a fight with him on his platforms and not feel afraid of standing up or go onto the House floor. And I said, we have a similar situation today when FDR called out the economic royalists and said there's economic tyranny and the economic elites are taking over government. We need to recognize that that's what's going on today with billionaires trying to take over government, and we will stand firm. So I would recommend Senator Schumer give his speeches from the Senate floor. It's probably a more comfortable framework. But, look, the vice president lost badly in terms of all the 7 states. And I think we have to move on as a party. The status quo failed. We were not change agents. I don't think that's the future. I think what we need is a new generation of people stepping up and being strong. People like Greg Kazar, people like Dalia Ramirez, Joe Neguse in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC. And then in the Senate, Senator Schatz has shown great leadership in putting a hold on nominees. Senator Van Hollen, Senator Sanders, of course. I think Senator Sanders has become the moral conscience of the Democratic Party. Frankly, had we nominated him, we probably would have won. He was right about a lot of things of the working class. And so, we ran with a status quo candidate. It was not a inspiring campaign of economic change and questioning the status quo. Now we need to show that we get it. We're going to reform our own party, and we're going to fight Elon Musk.
And so who is responsible right now for actually making these changes? Because, I described the power vacuum, but we actually want to know that there is somebody kind of calling the shots and is encouraging people to step up. Does it happen by osmosis? Will it be like, last person standing? Or is there actually a targeted plan? Because I suppose the fear is that there is still a kind of historic Nancy Pelosi version of the party that, arguably might want to run Kamala Harris again next time around.
She has no chance. I mean, that's a non-starter. There are probably 20 Democrats plucked from the House or Senate who would have a better chance. But the point is that there's Hakeem Jeffries, who is very, very strong in terms of his leadership. I think he generally has the House confidence, but I think he needs to be out there more, and we're encouraging him to be out there. And he has a plan of action. We discussed it in the House caucus. But I'm going to be honest to say that for 2 months, the Democrats really didn't have a clear direction. We had our tail between our legs after a pretty decisive defeat of Vice President Harris. But now when Elon Musk and Donald Trump have overreached, when they stopped the payments, something went off around the country. There was an energy that I see that is back amongst Democrats. The fight is back. Our caucus is energized. And I think you're going to see a much more cohesive party in a strong opposition going forward.
A lot of people will say that the Democrats, you're right about this kind of period of mourning. I mean, that was like people were in a depression, and we all felt that. But I agree with you. People are back. The support is back. So that's why there's the hope that the leadership is also back. But in terms of having a plan, I mean, the Republicans had a plan called Project 2025 that was a 900-page document. Those of us that read it, we were able to predict everything that's happening now. And in fact, the Senate has voted on party lines to confirm Russell Vought, the key architect of Project 2025, to lead the Office of Management and Budget, despite your opposition. This is very worrying, isn't it? That this kind of far-right Christian nationalist Heritage Foundation-led document is very much the Bible leading the Republican and the MAGA Republican movement right now. How do you counter that? Because, they are organized, aren't they?
Well, we need to have our own vision and our own plan for 2028 and come up with a plan like Sanders did, that we're going to be for Medicare for all. We're going to be for a living wage. We're going to be for taxing wealth. We're going to be for making college free and vocational education free. We're going to make sure that childcare is $10 a day. We're going to have a total modern reindustrialization effort to rebuild America's industrial base. We need our vision for 2028, but that's a vision for when we're back in power. Right now, more immediately, we need to stop the destruction and takeover of the government, to prevent millions of people from being denied benefits. I believe we're going to get our act together and have pretty fast. Look, when Obama won in 2008, it took the Republicans about 6 months of flagging around until they all settled on stop Obama and stop the Affordable Care Act. And that gave rise to the Tea Party. And unfortunately, Obama lost the midterms pretty decisively. I think we're already there. No Democrat is going to be giving votes to Donald Trump or Elon Musk on the key issues. That wasn't clear in the first maybe few days, but now there's a pretty gelling unification of the party. And so I have great hope with Hakeem Jeffries, who I do believe will be the Speaker of the House and is a new generation, different than Schumer and Pelosi.
I hope so. I have great respect for Hakeem Jeffries, but it takes an army. This is the problem that we see right now. It can't just be one person. And I guess maybe we saw that with Kamala Harris, like so much was put on her shoulders with not enough time. And I would hate for Hakeem Jeffries to carry such a huge load without having the support of everybody around him. You talk about 2028. There is some talk and fear, as Donald Trump has joked about, and it's never really a joke with him, as he doesn't have a sense of humor in the last 48 hours, that he could run in 2028 and that he is entitled to a third term. What are the chances that, he is going to kind of ensure that there never will be a legitimate election ever again that gives Democrats the chance to actually win?
Well, if he runs for a third term, we should have Obama run for a third term, and Obama would win. Obama would have won this time. He would have won decisively. I do want to say that, I do think it was too short a time frame, but we should be pretty clear-eyed. It was not a well-run campaign. I mean, we were running on joy. We were not understanding the anger people felt around the country about the economic devastation. Basically, we were running a campaign as the status quo. Nothing is going to change. When we had to run a campaign of economic transformation and taking on institutions of politics that had let down many working and middle class Americans. And that needs to be the lesson of the Democratic Party, that status quo set candidates aren't going to win. They didn't win in 2016. Biden barely won, and that's, I think, because he was inspired by what Bernie had done and adopted some of that language. And they didn't win in 2024. And we need to make sure we're now running a bold change agenda. Now, do I think that it's going to be a fight to make sure that we're pushing back on Donald Trump? Absolutely. But I believe we can get his numbers down to the low 40s. And, that just will make it very hard for anyone in that approval rating to run for any third term. So I don't think we leave it to chance. We make it clear to the American people that his agenda is not popular.
If you're looking to take charge of your life with full mental clarity this new year, enhance your sober January and embrace CBD Awareness Month with VIA to experience the powerful benefits of hemp without the high. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, VIA is the Swiss Army knife of wellness, dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. VIA's products combines minor cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, and CBN with botanical supplements for targeted effects you can actually feel. Whether you're looking to improve your sleep, focus, or relief, VIA has something for you. Via is also renowned for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies and vapes, THCA flower soothing topicals and calming drops, all crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. And the best part, Via legally ships to nearly all states in the US in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. No medical card is required. If you're 21 plus, check out the link to Via in our description and use the code WEEKEND to receive 15% off. And if you're new to Via, get a free gift of your choice. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. This year, enhance your everyday with Via. This last election saw a huge amount of voter suppression. Some reports have put it at significant numbers. Now, we know that Republicans have been suppressing the vote for decades. And simple things like, not enough polling places and removing drop boxes and this type of stuff, but to actually purging tens of thousands of names from voter rolls and making it increasingly difficult to vote. That is a big problem, especially when we see Donald Trump showing up in California, as he did when he got doorstepped by Gavin Newsom, and saying, yeah, okay, we'll give you aid for your fires on the agreement that we do voter ID here. I mean, to me, that was a suggestion that he knows that with voter ID, which is a form of voter suppression, that he actually has a chance of winning in states that otherwise he would not.
Well, there's no doubt that there was voter suppression. This is why I believe that we should have done everything possible to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I give the president and vice president credit for trying. I don't think it was their fault that we didn't. It was Manchin and Sinema who were unwilling to get rid of the filibuster. Next time, the Democrats need to make sure that we pass that and get rid of the filibuster when we have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. The challenge is, until then, we're going to have to recognize that we're fighting with this arm tied behind our back, that there are less polling places in predominantly African American or lower income areas. Eric Holder has research on this, that African Americans are having to stand in line longer than white Americans to vote. There have been purges of people who haven't voted but are registered to vote by secretaries of state. And the reality is it's going to take massive mobilization and inspiration to overcome it. But can we do it? Sure we can. Obama did it. Biden did it despite laws against him in 2020. Stacey Abrams was able to do it for Georgia. So we have to recognize the reality that we're fighting with one arm behind our back. And then when we do have power, we need to change the law.
The SAVE Act is the next thing that they have planned, which I know was vetoed back in July by President Biden. But this is another bill that they want to put back for a vote. And with control of the House and the Senate, then there's a very good chance they could get that onto statute. And the SAVE Act does exactly this. It is a voter suppression act for the whole country. Is there a plan to kind of counter that? And is it even possible to do so?
Well, we need to counter it in the Senate. I think that is our best chance to see that they can't get 60 votes in the Senate. And then we need to counter it in the courts. And states need to adopt protections where they can that the federal government won't afford. But it is, like I said, until we get power back, it is a challenge that we're going to face these kind of suppression efforts.
Let's talk for a moment about DOGE, your favorite subject, I'm sure, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is not a government department. A judge has kind of temporarily blocked this plan for I think the deadline was for Thursday night, first thing Friday morning, for people to take up this idea that they could quit, they could resign, they get paid for 8 months, trying to reduce the size of the federal workforce. As I say, this has been extended to Monday so that there can be further kind of legal challenges. But this is very dangerous, isn't it? The idea that Donald Trump with Elon Musk think that they can turn the largest employer in the country upside down What effect do you think this will actually have on people's lives? Not just those workers, but people who rely on the federal government for services and for, the systems that we just take for granted, maybe.
Well, it could be devastating. I was talking to someone in Pennsylvania, and she said she voted for Trump, but her mother is in the hospital, and her mother is on Medicaid, and she got totally freaked out when that funding was paused, even though it was a few hours. So you're causing extraordinary stress to people who rely on these funding streams and don't know if it's going to be there or not. For working class families whose kids go to public school, they need that funding for decent public schools in those neighborhoods. For any family that has kids with special needs and has an IEP program, that is at risk if that funding gets paused. Any young person who's taking out a loan to go for vocational education or college or law school, that or professional school, that is at risk. You have funding that is going for people who need it for food assistance, for heating assistance. All of that is at risk. And you have basically the situation where Trump and Musk can think they have the authority to turn off the funding. Now, I said to a conservative, imagine if a Democratic president got elected, a progressive Democratic president, and you have an $800 billion defense budget right now, which is, by the way, where most of the spending is. And the Democratic president just said, well, we don't want to spend that. We're just only going to do $400 billion in defense. Can you imagine the outrage in this country? Of course, you can't defy Congress's authorization.
And this extends to USAID as well, doesn't it? Maybe we could talk to that just for a moment, because people have written to me saying, I'm an American citizen. Why should I be paying for food programs in Africa, for example? There is a bit of a misunderstanding about how foreign aid works and the importance of international development and how it comes back to us in the long run. Do you think Democrats maybe have failed to explain to people where this money goes and how it just represents less than 1% of the federal budget?
Well, we certainly have failed in communicating that it represents less than 1% of the budget, because many people think it's 20 to 25%. And look, when people are hurting economically and they have lost their factory job, or they have are stagnating in wages, or they see healthcare costs high, homelessness, they say, well, why aren't you spending on us? Why are you spending overseas? And what we have to do is say our priority is spending locally in the community, and we're going to tax people who made a lot of wealth to be able to make those investments. But we also, for both a sense of moral conscience in terms of saving kids' lives, can have an anti-malaria program, can have a program on HIV to prevent people dying of HIV that George W. Bush did. But more than that, it is about American leadership so that China or Russia don't develop those economic relationships with the other countries. And by the way, the reason we have such a great standard of living is we have relationships with all of these countries around the world that view the U.S. as the reserve currency, that are supplying things and engaging in trade with us, that are in an alliance of the free world. And that supports the American way of life, and it supports the American leadership. And that's such a small investment for that benefit.
Because we kind of need to change the culture, don't we? I mean, this is so baked in, and maybe this arguably is what helped Donald Trump win, is that there is this very kind of selfish view from some Americans, not all, but enough to get Donald Trump a majority, clearly, where this isolationist view of the U.S. and America first and all of this stuff, this is very cultural and it's tribal. And so what are Democrats doing to actually counter that aspect? Because even Mitch McConnell wrote a piece recently saying that he didn't believe in it either. So, and I didn't really hear any Democrats picking up on that and saying, well, even the guy who's leading the Republicans in the Senate doesn't buy this.
Well, I think we have to understand where that sentiment comes from. It comes from a feeling that over the last 50 years, the globalization of the economy and culture hasn't worked for a lot of Americans, that multinational corporations basically snatched people's livelihoods away, took away their jobs, sent them offshore, that you had multinational corporations looking for the cheapest labor, making huge profits. You had private equity hollowing out businesses and getting large dividends. And people felt like they had no agency. And so the cry for nationalism is a cry for local control. It's a cry for saying our community needs to assert itself against impersonal global economic forces. The problem is that when it becomes simply isolationism, as opposed to recognizing that we abandon communities, need to reinvest in those communities, need to rebuild our industrial base, but engage in the world, when it becomes an isolationism, that deprives America of our leadership in the world, that has a lot of benefit to our power and to the standard of living of Americans, and it cheapens the American exceptional project, which is that we believe in the dignity and freedom of every person. And America wants to lead a world like that and not allow the dictatorial regimes of Putin or communist China to do that. So we need to make the case of America as Reagan put it, a city on the hill, or as Kennedy put it, as a beacon to the world. But to do that, we have to understand the justified frustration so many Americans have with globalization.
Finally, let's just talk to this tragic crash that took place in D.C. last week. The response from Donald Trump was to blame diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that kind of ricocheted not just around the U.S. but around the world. The idea that his response went further than that, and some of his surrogates came out saying we basically just need white men running these things and being in senior positions and being air traffic controllers. The racist dog whistle was really that acute, wasn't it? How did you feel just hearing that was the response from the President of the United States?
I felt ashamed. I felt sad. I felt sad. I felt sad because I've been on that plane in terms of landing into DCA, not from Wichita, but so many times from California or other parts of the country. And I thought, what if that was me? What if it was someone I knew? What would the grief be of those families, the unimaginable grief whose lives have been shattered, turned upside down for the rest of their lives? And instead of talking about that as any normal country would for a period of few days, instead of hearing about the stories of those families, instead of honoring the victims, instead of honoring the first responders, we have a president who's politicizing the tragedy. I didn't even think about the absurdity of what he was saying. I just thought, where is the humanity? Where is the humanity, not just in our president, but in our country, that we are unable to grieve for something that lost? So I felt actually, Anthony, less anger at the president and more sadness for my nation, more sadness for the state of the political climate that we're in.
We have to finish, but I'm so grateful to you. I think there's so much to do right now, isn't there? So many different fires that are burning, and I wish you and your colleagues all the luck in taking. Well,
Anthony, I'm grateful to you because I know people are upset with some of the lack of leadership, and I think people like you and your audience are stiffening the spines of those of us who are in the fight, saying, "Go! This is not the time to shirk. This is not the time to be polite. This is the time that you got to fight for the constitutional democracy." But I got to tell you, it's not just going to be those of us elected. This is a fight of our lives. We need all of our citizens. And when people are out there pushing us, when they're coming out to town halls, when they're coming out in marches, when they're vocal in comments and online, that is the type of energy we need to defeat Donald Trump. It's the type of energy we saw in 2017 through 2020. I was concerned that energy was missing over the last couple months, but it's returned. And what gives me hope is not that we've discovered the leadership. That vacuum still needs to be fully filled. What gives me hope, though, is that the citizens are mobilized. And when you have a mobilized citizenry, Abraham Lincoln said public sentiment is everything. And I believe that's what will allow us to prevail.
Okay. For now, Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you for joining the Weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm Anthony Davis. Don't forget to support me and independent journalism at patreon.com/5Minute News or by joining the 5 Minute News YouTube channel. I'll be back next Sunday with a brand new special guest and more factual news to discuss on the 5 Minute News Weekend Show. with Midas Touch.